Hey everyone, Xiao here. Thanks for stopping by. I've received many questions about setting up a PC for AI tasks, whether for training models or running LLM inference. So, I thought it would be worthwhile to explore how to build a high-performance AI workstation that remains accessible, whether you're a professional, researcher, university student, or just starting to tinker with AI. Based on my experience and research into recent PC components, I've put together a build plan that costs around $1,100 for the core components, featuring an Intel Core Ultra 7 265K CPU and an Intel Arc B580 GPU. If I were building a PC for AI work, this is the setup I would choose. As always, all the links mentioned in this video are listed in the description. Please note that I'm not providing advice or instructions, just documenting what worked for me and what I discovered along the way. Before we begin, please read the disclaimer in the video description. If you've done that, let's get started. Let's get straight to the point. This system is designed with 6 main priorities in mind: performance and affordability. It should deliver high performance while remaining cost-effective. Longevity. The majority of components should remain usable for years without requiring upgrades. Versatility. It should efficiently handle both AI workloads and gaming. Low noise. It should operate quietly, ensuring a comfortable working environment. Energy efficiency. It should minimize power consumption. Compact footprint. It should occupy minimal indoor space. The total cost of this build, excluding the case and Windows license, is $1,156.86. It features the Intel Core Ultra 7 265K and Intel Arc B580. The Intel Core Ultra 7 265K was chosen for its top-tier performance and efficiency, while the Intel Arc B580 stands out due to its strong price-to-performance ratio and robust software support for AI workloads. I have personally purchased 2 B580 GPUs and used them for machine learning and AI tasks. Based on my experience, the Intel Arc B580 offers the best value for anyone starting with AI-related workloads. For optimal performance, this system includes 32 GB of RAM, which is sufficient when paired with the B580, given its 12 GB of VRAM, as system RAM size should be at least equal to VRAM size, ideally more. There have been rumors that Intel may introduce a 24 GB Arc B580 model in the future. If that happens, this configuration should still be adequate even for a GPU with a larger VRAM capacity. Additionally, the system includes a 1 TB NVMe SSD, providing fast data access and ample storage space. As you may notice in the list, the selected power supply is a premium 850-watt Platinum unit. This choice is important for meeting the low noise requirement I mentioned earlier. I will explain this in more detail later. Notably, the total cost for key components can be further reduced to around $1,100 if the Intel Core 7 Ultra 265, a lower power version, and the Intel Arc B580 Limited Edition can be purchased at Intel's MSRP. Personally, I prefer lower power consumption over higher performance, so I favor the non-K variant, which I explain in more detail later. However, as of this writing, it is not yet available for purchase, at least in Australia. I also prefer the Intel Arc B580 Limited Edition due to its low MSRP, but I have not been able to find one at MSRP at the moment. To complete the system, an operating system and a case are needed. Here, I list Windows 11 Pro and an open case setup as optional, as OS and case preferences vary among users. Even though I use Linux for work, my personal preference is Windows 11 Pro, which I will highlight as particularly useful for this setup, such as when pairing the proposed system with an Intel Lunar Lake-based laptop for portability. I also use open cases for 2 of my PCs and will discuss the pros and cons of using an open case setup. In the rest of this discussion, I will address several key aspects of this build, framed as questions. Why was the Intel Core Ultra 7 265K chosen for this build? Why choose the Intel Arc B580 over the AMD 9070 for AI tasks? Why use an 850W Platinum-rated power supply from Thermaltake? And why is it important for achieving quiet operation? What are the potential issues with an open case setup? What about portability? Lastly, how does this system perform in gaming? Without further delay, let's go through these points one by one. Here is how the system might look with the open case setup I mentioned in the previous slide. The photo was taken in the middle of the night, and the system is running completely silent. This is a PC I built for my wife for video editing. It is equipped with an Intel Core i5-13500 CPU on an Intel Z790 platform and an Intel Arc B580 limited edition GPU. I use a Noctua cooler instead of the stock cooler that came with the CPU. I also use a Thermaltake power supply with the Smart Zero fan feature enabled. Even under hot weather conditions in Melbourne, Australia, the system remains largely silent. My wife prefers working on this system over her laptop due to its superior low noise profile and video editing performance. Now, let's address the questions we outlined earlier. First, why choose the Intel Core Ultra 7 265K? I will answer this question by evaluating its performance, its efficiency, its integrated GPU, and its neural processing unit, aka NPU. For performance, let's look at the Geekbench 6 multi-core results from KitGuru Tech. As you can see, the Intel Core Ultra 7 265K is nearly neck and neck with the AMD Ryzen 9 9950X, while the latter costs almost twice as much as the former when factoring in discounts. Multi-threading performance is particularly useful for data pre-processing before proceeding to training or machine learning tasks. A processor with high multi-core performance significantly enhances efficiency when handling data pre-processing. Although not shown here, the Intel Core Ultra 7 265K also ranks among the top-tier processors in single-core performance. For machine learning and AI workloads, single-thread performance is also important, as Python primarily operates in a single-threaded manner. Energy efficiency is a key feature of the Arrow Lake S series of CPUs. Let's take a look at a snapshot of Tech PowerUp's review of the Intel Core Ultra 7 265K. According to their tests, its average power consumption while running applications is 108 watts, representing a 30% reduction compared to the previous generation Intel processor, the Intel Core i7 14700K. During gaming, power usage drops even further, averaging 77 watts, once again, a notable double-digit percentage reduction from the previous generation. Here are the specifications of the Intel Core Ultra 7 265K. The K suffix indicates that the processor is unlocked, meaning it can be clocked higher than the base clock frequencies, provided a Z890 motherboard is used. The K designation also signifies a performance-oriented processor. The Intel Core Ultra 7 265K has a base power of 125 watts and a maximum turbo power of 250 watts. The closest alternative to the Intel Core Ultra 7 265K is its non-K variant. In fact, I believe this would be a better fit for this build. Its recommended price is slightly lower than that of the K variant. While its boost speeds are slightly lower than the K version, the configuration outlined earlier includes a dual-tower CPU cooler, which should provide sufficient thermal headroom for the CPU to reach its turbo frequencies while maintaining a much lower noise profile compared to the stock cooler included with the non-K version. At the same time, it's important to note that the base power of the non-K variant is 65 watts, which is almost half that of the K variant. Lower power consumption is a valuable feature in itself and also plays a crucial role in achieving quiet operation, a point we will expand on later. Overall, the combination of boost speeds and lower base power allows us to achieve strong performance when needed while consuming less power than the K variant overall. Unfortunately, as of now, the non-K variant is not yet available for purchase, so I did not include it in this configuration. Also, note that the Intel Core Ultra 7 265K and its non-K variant include an integrated GPU. You might wonder why an integrated GPU is necessary when the KF versions, which lack one, are more affordable. The answer lies in Intel's integrated GPU capabilities. Unlike its competitors' integrated graphics, Intel's integrated GPU can handle demanding graphical tasks without requiring a dedicated GPU. For instance, it features Intel Quick Sync Video, a dedicated hardware accelerator for video encoding and decoding. It can accelerate certain professional video encoding and decoding standards that are not even available in NVIDIA's top discrete GPUs. This makes it an incredibly valuable feature for anyone who frequently works with video editing. Even with a discrete GPU, such as the Intel Arc B580, choosing an Intel processor with an integrated GPU allows Windows-related tasks to be offloaded to the integrated GPU, reducing the workload on the discrete GPU. This enables the discrete GPU to function as a dedicated accelerator, significantly improving its performance in AI tasks. This is an important discovery I made after using the Intel Arc B580 for LLM training and inference. Since the B580 has 12 GB of VRAM, improper resource management can lead to VRAM saturation and performance degradation. By offloading unrelated tasks to the integrated GPU, we free up VRAM and compute resources, ensuring that the Intel Arc B580 operates at peak performance. You can find more details in my previous video, titled Intel Arc B580, Unleashing its Training Performance versus NVIDIA A100 and NVIDIA L4, linked below. While making this video, I reassigned OBS screen recording at 4K to the Intel integrated GPU, utilizing Intel's Quick Sync, while simultaneously performing LLM instruction fine-tuning on the B580 at full performance, without saturating the discrete GPU's VRAM. In my opinion, Intel's integrated GPU is a key differentiator when selecting a CPU for machine learning and AI tasks. Besides the strong case for the integrated GPU in the Intel processor for productivity workloads, as demonstrated in Tech Power-Up's review of the Intel Core Ultra 7 265K, the new integrated GPU leads in 1080p gaming performance among all tested integrated GPUs. It even approaches the performance of the NVIDIA GTX 1630, a discrete GPU. This performance test can serve as a proxy for other workloads, such as CAD and 3D simulation. For example, it should be feasible to run 3D simulations using the integrated GPU while simultaneously running DeepSeek R1 on a discrete GPU, such as the Intel Arc B580. Lastly, the Intel Core Ultra 7 265K includes an NPU unit capable of 13 TOPS, i.e., 13 trillion operations per second at INT8. Having an NPU is useful, as certain computational tasks can be offloaded to it, reducing the load on both the CPU and GPU. Given the recent announcement of the AMD Radeon 9070 and 9070 XT GPUs, some may wonder, why choose the Intel Arc B580 over the AMD 9070? I will address this question by following a structured approach. First, I will examine the specifications and pricing of the Intel Arc B580 GPU, which has been selected for this build. Next, I will review the specifications and pricing of the newly released AMD GPUs. Then, I will normalize the data and compare the two options. Finally, I will provide a summary of my experience using the Intel Arc B580 for AI tasks. I first purchased the Intel Arc B580 Limited Edition and was impressed by its aesthetic design. The base clock speed is 2670 MHz, which is lower than the non-limited models. Its power consumption is rated at 190 W, also lower than the non-limited models. The VRAM capacity for the B580 is 12 GB. The second Intel Arc B580 I purchased was the ASRock Steel Legend Overclock Edition. The base clock frequency for this card is 2800 MHz, which is 5% higher than the limited version. The current retail price is 479 Australian dollars, which is just over $300 US. One of the reasons I chose this model is that it supports dual 8-pin power inputs, which may facilitate further overclocking. However, the downside of overclocking beyond the factory settings is the potential impact on system stability. This is a screenshot of Intel graphics software. As shown, even the ASRock Intel Arc B580 Steel Legend is a factory overclocked model. However, there is still some overclocking headroom, allowing the card to reach around 3 GHz. That said, I personally run it at the factory base clock to ensure system stability. In the build list shown earlier, I chose the ASRock Arc B580 Challenger 12 GB OC model. I selected this because it is the lowest cost Intel Arc B580 available in Australia at the moment. This model is clocked at 2740 MHz, which is 2.6% higher than the limited edition while being just 2.1% lower than the ASRock Steel Legend version that I purchased. Like other versions, they currently offer a free game, Assassin's Creed Shadows, which I have not redeemed yet. Let's look at AMD's figures. The AMD 9070 requires 220 watts of power, which is close to the 190 watts consumed by the Intel Arc B580 limited edition. Hence, we will use the 9070 for comparison. AMD directly quotes its INT4 performance figures, but with a catch. It claims 1165 TOPS. However, this number includes sparsity, which I will briefly explain next. The VRAM capacity is 16 GB. The AMD 9070 starts at $549. TOPS stands for tera operations per second. It typically refers to the number of operations a neural processing unit can execute, primarily focusing on lower bit integer operations such as INT8 or INT4. This performance metric is commonly associated with AI workloads and PC performance specifications. Most companies follow the convention of using INT8 to measure TOPS. In general, if we have an INT8 TOPS value, we can estimate the INT4 TOPS by multiplying it by 2, as INT4 operations require lower precision. However, this assumption does not always hold, as the underlying hardware must support native INT4 processing. Previously, I calculated the INT4 TOPS for the Intel Arc B580 limited edition using its specification data, including clock speeds. Regarding sparsity, NVIDIA was the first to quote its performance figures using this technique. In this context, sparsity refers to algorithms optimized for accelerating sparse matrix computations, which can give the impression that the hardware is capable of handling more data. There is no indication of sparsity support in Intel's Battlemage documentation. However, I found a research paper discussing the implementation of sparse matrix acceleration for Intel data center GPUs. Despite this, the practical benefits of sparse matrix acceleration for various workloads on NVIDIA GPUs remain uncertain. Based on discussions in NVIDIA's forums, the advantages do not appear to be significant. Therefore, I believe a better measure is the dense performance metric. In general, we divide the sparse number by 2 to obtain the dense number. For more details, please refer to my previous video titled Intel Arc B580 vs NVIDIA RTX 5070, Unpacking AI TOPS and FP16 Performance, linked below. Now, let us compare their INT4 performance. For the Intel Arc B580, I use the figure that I previously calculated and adjusted for the ASRock Challenger model to account for its factory overclocking. For the AMD 9070, I simply divide the quoted number by 2 to estimate its dense INT4 performance. Since the price of the B580 was originally in Australian dollars, I converted it to USD based on the latest exchange rate. Additionally, as we are using an Intel CPU with an integrated GPU, as previously explained, even with 12 GB of VRAM, this does not put the B580 at a disadvantage due to offloading unrelated compute to the integrated GPU. In fact, for LLM inferencing, 16 GB is an odd number. For example, it would not be sufficient for the DeepSeek R132B model. For the DeepSeek R114B model, both 12 GB and 16 GB work fine. Personally, I believe that 24 GB of VRAM or more is preferred. I hope Intel introduces a 24 GB model soon. As you already saw on the screen, the punchline is 75 to 80% of the performance at 50% of the cost. This highlights the value of the B580. I use the 75 to 80% range to account for variations among B580 models. With overclocking, 80% performance can be achieved. Regarding software, I previously used AMD Vega GPUs for TensorFlow a long time ago, and the experience was not good. However, I have not used their recent GPUs for AI and machine learning, so I cannot comment on their current software support. As for the Intel Arc B580 GPU, I previously shared my experience in a tweet. Here is what I said: the Intel Arc B580 GPU is quite capable. For my use cases, it can effectively handle both inference and training, just like my NVIDIA GPU. Well done to Intel for its software efforts, including at PyTorch, Intel SPU Backend for Triton, IPEXLLM, and many others. Previously, I made a video about LLM inferencing on the Intel Arc B580. Please refer to the video titled Running DeepSeek R1 on Intel Arc B580, my setup and performance experience, with the link provided below. As referenced earlier when discussing the advantage of using an Intel CPU with an integrated GPU, in this reference video, I mainly covered the training performance of the Intel Arc B580. For my specific instruction fine-tuning scenario, the Intel Arc B580 performed just behind the NVIDIA A100, which costs $8,000. That concludes our discussion on Intel Arc B580. Let us turn our attention to the selection of the power supply. The reason I chose the 850 watts Platinum model is that I want the power supply to run silently. The power supply includes a feature called Smart Zero Fan. When this feature is activated, the power supply fan remains off and only turns on when the power draw exceeds a certain threshold. The threshold for the Platinum rated models is 40% of the rated power. The rated power in this case is 850 watts, so 40% of that is 340 watts. Therefore, if the total system power draw remains below 340 watts, the power supply fan stays off. As a safety precaution, when I leave the system running as a remote workstation while away, I switch off the Smart Zero Fan feature. Let us estimate the total power consumption of the proposed system. TechYesCity reviewed the ASRock Intel Arc B580 Challenger model. The maximum power draw of the card under gaming workload is 125 watts. In Tech PowerUp's review of the Intel Core Ultra 7 265K CPU, it states that under gaming workload, the CPU consumes approximately 77 watts of power. We can use gaming power consumption as an estimate for the CPU and GPU power usage under load, which sums up to 125 plus 77 is equal to 202 watts in practical scenarios. The CPU and GPU typically do not reach their maximum power draw simultaneously. For machine learning workloads, when the GPU is in use, the CPU remains relatively underutilized, as Python is largely single-threaded. Therefore, 202 watts can be a realistic point estimate for the combined power usage of the CPU and GPU under load. As we previously calculated, the Smart Zero Fan activation threshold is 340 watts. This leaves ample power headroom for DDR5 memory, storage drives, the motherboard, and other components. As a result, the power supply can operate quietly with Smart Zero Fan enabled. Furthermore, if a non-K variant CPU is used, more power budget can be allocated to a GPU that consumes more power, while still ensuring the power supply operates silently. This could allow for a mid to high tier GPU, which could be Intel Celestial next year. Why is this important? The fan in a power supply can be very noisy, especially under load, such as when training a deep learning model or playing a video game. By keeping the power supply fans inactive using the Smart Zero Fan feature, the noise level is primarily attributed by the CPU cooler fans and GPU fans. The CPU cooler I selected for this build is known for its good noise profile. Based on reviews of the ASRock Intel Arc B580 Challenger GPU, the noise from its fans appears to be tolerable. Additionally, since the discrete GPU is not always in use, thanks to the integrated GPU available on the CPU, the discrete GPU fans would likely remain idle when not in use. As a result, most of the time, only the two CPU fans will be actively running, leading to an overall quiet operation. Earlier, I shared a picture of the open case setup for my wife's video editing PC. Now, let's discuss the pros and cons of using an open PC case. Pros: one advantage is that there is no case rattling, which helps reduce noise. An open case also allows for better airflow, meaning the system can run cooler and quieter with fewer fans. In my proposed setup, only 5 fans are in the system. Another benefit is easy maintenance. I simply disconnect the PC, take it outside, and use an electric air blower to clean it. To stay safe, I wear a mask and safety glasses while doing this. Cons and safety concerns: however, an open PC case is not suitable for environments with small children because the components are exposed. To reduce risks, I place the PC under my desk, which helps protect it from accidents or potential hardware failures. It is also important not to place an open PC directly on carpet, as this can lead to dust buildup, overheating, and fire risks. Additionally, electrical hazards are something to consider since exposed components increase the risk of damage or accidents. Final thought before choosing an open PC case: it's important to consider your specific setup, including pets, ventilation, and workspace layout. Understanding these factors will help you decide if an open case is right for you. Let's now turn our attention to portability. Before I begin, I want to mention that, due to the acoustic and performance advantages of a desktop system, I prefer using a desktop over a laptop. The laptop I currently use can be louder than my desktop, while the desktop delivers significantly better performance. As shown in my photo of my wife's PC, the footprint of a desktop system can be relatively small, making it easy to relocate. Hence, even though it is a desktop, it still offers some degree of portability. However, some might argue that a desktop system is not portable. In today's world, I don't think this is a significant issue. Since I chose Windows 11 Pro for my desktop build, I can remotely log into my desktop from a laptop using 5G on my phone and continue working on development tasks. A more energy-efficient approach would be to use SSH instead of a graphical user interface. Additionally, you can run your own private LLM, such as the DeepSeek R114B model, on the desktop, keeping it always ready to handle reasoning-based remote queries from the laptop without relying on paid models. I previously mentioned that many laptops can be unpleasant to use due to noise. However, with the new generation of laptops equipped with Intel's Lunar Lake mobile processor, this is no longer the case. One model I particularly like is the Yoga Slim 7i Aura Edition, as shown here. Its price is listed in Australian dollars, which, when converted, amounts to approximately $1,240. According to reviews, the battery life of this laptop is comparable to the latest Qualcomm ARM-based laptops. However, since it is x86-based, there are no software compatibility issues. The CPU cores in the Lunar Lake processor are highly efficient, and the integrated GPU shares the same architecture as the Intel Arc B580. Most reviews indicate that the laptop runs quietly and stays cool, even under load and while plugged in. Since Lunar Lake systems are Copilot Plus certified, the included NPU is highly capable and should be able to run a small language model for tasks such as language correction. The combination of using this laptop and remotely accessing LLM models such as DeepSeek R1 on the desktop enables a fully private, local LLM experience. One of the reasons I made this video is that I saw Framework launch a small AMD-based workstation with a $2,000 price tag. This got me thinking, for that amount of money, you could do a lot more. The cost of building the desktop I showed earlier and purchasing this laptop is not far from $2,000, yet this combination offers better compute performance and flexibility compared to the pre-built workstation. Also, both Intel Lunar Lake mobile processors and the latest Intel Core Ultra desktop processors support Thunderbolt 4. This enables Thunderbolt Share, making it possible to seamlessly transfer files between systems. This is a game-changing feature, as it allows users to ditch USB drives for file sharing and rely on a much faster, more efficient transfer method. To use Thunderbolt Share, a Thunderbolt 4 port is required on the desktop. Currently, all Z890 series motherboards and select B860 series motherboards come with a built-in Thunderbolt 4 port. The cheapest LG A1851 motherboard with a Thunderbolt 4 port that I could find in Australia is the ASRock Z890 Pro A Wi-Fi, which is selected in the proposed system setup. At the moment, I believe this feature is supported on Microsoft Windows. For the fun part, Thunderbolt Share also supports streaming gaming sessions. In this video, Intel demonstrated streaming gameplay via Thunderbolt Share, with the footage being directly captured by OBS running on the laptop. I assume the gaming session can then be live-streamed to the internet. This feature could be particularly useful for those interested in PC gaming. As we touched on gaming while discussing the Thunderbolt Share feature, you might ask, what about gaming performance? Based on the latest testing by PCGH, the gaming performance of the Intel Core Ultra 7 265K is only 3% behind the second-place competitor while being 9% ahead of the AMD Ryzen 9 9950X, which also serves as the baseline. As mentioned earlier, the AMD Ryzen 9 9950X can cost twice as much as the Intel Core Ultra 7 265K when factoring in discounts. Finally, we've reached the last slide. The diagram shows a screenshot of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 running on my current system, which features an Intel Core i7-14700K CPU and an ASRock Intel Arc B580 Steel Legend GPU. I use a professional 4K monitor with a 60Hz refresh rate, and the game runs very smoothly on the Intel Arc B580. Based on reviews of the Intel Arc B580, when paired with a capable CPU, the B580 performs exceptionally well, outperforming both the NVIDIA RTX 4060 and AMD RX 7600 XT, both of which are more expensive than the Intel Arc B580. Since the Intel Core Ultra 7 265K is a top-tier gaming CPU, just like my Intel Core i7-14700K, I believe the proposed desktop system should handle gaming just as well. And that's it. Thank you for following along on my journey. I hope you all enjoyed the content. If you have any questions about my experience, feel free to leave them in the comment section. If you found this video helpful, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support motivates me to keep sharing insights like this. Thanks again for watching. Cheers.